at the core, like the work that we're doing is like, how do we treat each other like humans? Right.
Yeah.
And like, for people who don't do that professionally, like what are the things that like, as we have these societal impacts, like societal traumatic events impacting us, like what are the steps that like we can take? First, right, acknowledge the feelings, acknowledge the grief. And like, if those aren't present for you, like, I'm not trying to like force that onto anyone.
Totally.
Right. But, you know, how would you invite folks to navigate the experience of all of this moving us towards a more interconnected, just, equitable, compassionate world?
Yeah. I think for me, the reason why I think it is so important to have space, again, in the time that folks need, and in the ways folks need, because like you said, it's so different for everyone, and not everyone can immediately be like, oh, this happened. I recognize that I'm sad and I need time to feel that before I can do other things, right? Like it looks totally different for everybody. But when that grief is really present, or sadness, or whatever that is, to give ourselves time to feel it. That could be 5 minutes for some. That could be a week for others, or longer, whatever that is. The reason why I think that's so important is because our internal world, our internal state is going to absolutely impact how we then operate in the outer world and what we create in the outer world. So if we are filled with anger, rage, frustration, a lot of which is totally understandable, right? And makes total sense. But if we're operating from that place, that's living in our bodies and in our energy and impacting the way that we think, impacting the solutions that we want to create, right? Or the actions that we want to take, then in the advocacy that we do, in the policies that we create, or even in the ways that we may want to do community care, that's going to show up. And so that's why I think that it's so important to tend to that first, so that we're operating from a place where we've essentially like cleaned up our side of the street. We've cleaned things up for ourselves. And that's an ongoing process too, right? You don't grieve once and then you're done. For me, it's like, it's a regular process of, oh, it's a new week. I'm sad again. It's a new day. There's something new that I'm sad about, or this grief from last week is showing up for me in a different way, right? It's also like a continuous muscle that we practice using. I think when we do that and we're able to clear it more, then when we are taking action, and maybe that's within the same day, within the same breath, but we're able to also see other people as more human and see that like we're all figuring this out. And when we're in high levels of stress, high levels of trauma, our ability, like we're really focused then on our own needs. And it's much harder to be able to, I think, take action that is going to be truly equitable and inclusive and empathetic, because we haven't really addressed our own needs. And so yes, I think tending to ourselves then helps us to do that better for other people as well, and in other spaces that we're working in. And then I think it's like something especially when I first started doing like social justice, social change work, I would feel like we need to fix everything all at once, right? We need to fully abolish the police. We have to get rid of all systems that are oppressive tomorrow. Or we have to get rid of like everything all at once, right? It's a very all or nothing mentality, which is also very much a characteristic of white supremacy culture. And I think when we are in a tender state and when our communities are in a tender state, I think one way that we can move from grief into action is just thinking like, what's that one first thing that I can do? Maybe it's the one thing I can do today is I can reach out to my 5 closest friends to check in on them and see if they're doing all right. Right. Then I'm going to reach out to one organization and see that I know is doing work around gun control or around, around legislation. And I'm going to see how I can show up for them. And I think taking those bite-sized pieces, while yes, we won't, like you said, stop all the horrible things from happening tomorrow. It feels more manageable. And I think it feels, it's also reminds us that like we are human. There is only so much that we're able to do, but it's all of us collectively doing that is also going to make that impact. So thinking about what is that one first step, do it, and then see what else that opens up for you. And I think as we do that and then we build that momentum, then it also opens up more opportunities for us to take more action, and to do so potentially and hopefully in community with one another.